What is up, everybody? It is Alex from Heavy New York calling from the Alto again, and this time we are here with Scott Stevens of The Exies. It is great to be able to talk with you. Thanks for being on the show today.
Thank you, Alex, for having me, man. This is amazing. Let's fucking rock.
It's amazing. It's amazing to have you here. I mean, the Closure EP, it's the first material that we've gotten in a long fucking time from you guys. And it's a reunion that kind of took me by surprise, and I was really happy to see that you guys are coming back because, I remember being a young teenager, like just entering my teens when A Modern Way of Living with the Truth came out and, Head for the Door. So like it's kind of good to as like an adult to witness new music coming from you guys. Did it just feel like picking up where you left off after like 2007, 2008, or was it like a new beginning in a way for you guys?
I think it was both. I really do. I think after not creating for so long and then trying to figure out like, well, who am I? And, what do I want to say? Because, as we live our lives, we're always like reinventing ourselves. We're moving through each day, through each year, through each decade. And, it took a minute to figure out like how to do this. But none of it was contrived. None of it had any expectations or preconceived ideas about what it should be. It just kind of happened organically. It happened in the time of COVID when we were all locked down. And, we're seeing a lot of material, I think, as far as music being born from that time. Well, let's face it. I mean, we were kind of like, we were cut off for the better part of almost 3 years. I mean, well, two years plus maybe. And so that ripple effect is starting to happen. And in that time, that's when all of this was born. And it feels like kind of a new beginning. It kind of feels like nostalgic, but new nostalgia, kind of a thing. And I'm just kind of rolling with it, man. I'm just kind of going with it. I don't know where it's going.
Sometimes that's got to be the best way to go into things sometimes because I love it when a band that I listen to or a band that, I'm a fan of that I never got to experience reunites. For a lot of the fans, there's a lot of hype that surrounds it and whatnot. And, some people would look at just going with the flow as being ungrateful or not caring. But sometimes it's just sort of like the best way to go into things because you don't want to pump yourself with too much adrenaline or kind of like, overthink the process that could, deteriorate the situation.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, the most organic thing to probably ever happen in this band's, existence or career, whatever it is you want to label it as, is no expectations. Like this was completely created off of a love and will and just kind of like what if and just basically kind of, there's no label, there's nobody telling us what to do, so write what you feel, feel what you write and just basically like put the freaking ship in the water and let it go. I mean, that's what happened,
But a lot has happened. I mean, I don't like making people feel old by any stretch of the means, but The Exies is a familiar band. You put out your first self-titled debut back when I was 6 years old. Like I was, yeah. I was just in kindergarten when you guys.
I was 7.
Yeah. Really?
No kidding.
Well, I gotta tell you. Well, I don't know what kind of hormones you had going on at 7 years old. But goddamn. what was in your fucking genes? But,
yeah. What was in my cereal?
Yeah, exactly. But nobody knew what life was going to be like. I most certainly didn't in kindergarten knew what life was going to be like, and you didn't know what life was going to be like. So when you compare like your self-titled EP or Inertia to now with this newer music, is this like a kind of like how you were able to see yourself as a musician back in the day? Is this sort of like where you aspired to be? Was there ever sort of like a forethought or any sort of plan coming into this?
Well, no, yes and no. Again, I mean, coming into this, you have these great aspirations. You're creating music. You want people to relate to it. You want to be able to go on tour. You want to sell records. You want to be able to put people in seats and have that connection. And that doesn't always work out how you want it to. There's a lot of bands out there. There's a lot of competition. There's a lot of, everybody has their life. to live. And music, like films, books, things that are of that kind of nature, they're kind of a backdrop to our lives, right? We have to live our lives. You have to go to work. You have to pay your bills. You have to eat. You have you maybe have a wife or a girlfriend or maybe a boyfriend or whatever it might be, and you're just you're doing life, and these kinds of things are extracurricular, and they do sometimes help us get through tough times and whatnot. So basically, I think what it is shit. I lost my train of thought.
Yeah, no, keep going. That's always
That's great for this. Tell me the question again, really quick.
No, if this was just how you were able to sort of see yourself and
okay. Yeah. So basically, to see myself, I mean, you never know where the ship is going to go, and it's this old. I don't know if it's Buddha or whatever it is, but you can only control what you're working on. You cannot control how it affects people. So you never really know, like what you and I are talking right now, we can't predict where it's going to go. 10 people could hear it and 10,000 could hear it and 10 million could hear it. And you just never really know. So you just have to focus on what you're doing in that moment and put your heart and your soul into it and let it, and put it in the river and just let it go. And so my journey to here is a very unscripted, unpredicted kind of thing. Because of the fact that I was in a band that had some success, kind of catapulted me into the writing world, which catapulted me into the producing world. And that has allowed me to kind of circle back around to being in the artist world again, putting out fresh music. But probably directly because of COVID and the shutdown, because I don't think I would, if that hadn't happened, I would have just kept on going. And that caused a great reflection period for me to look back on the years that I was making records and to look on the years that I was currently making records. So that all combined kind of pushed me into a territory that I wasn't really familiar or prepared for. I didn't realize that this was really going to happen. When I started to kind of write Exies songs again, I don't even think I realized that they were Exies songs in the very, very, very beginning. And then it started to kind of dawn on me like, oh yeah, these are kind of like my melodies and these are kind of like my words. And like, this is how I feel about things. And so when I finally realized what that was, I started to work on it and hone it. And it's just like you with this, we're talking here. This started with an idea in your head and you had to take steps in order to be able to get to where you are. The same thing happened with me. Unplanned, unpredicted, but now I'm extremely grateful that I'm actually able to do something for myself as well as work with others. And I would have never predicted that. So yay, COVID.
Well, do you think too, because a lot has happened, you've done a lot with music between the last Exies record and now. I just want to name like an impressive resume with your work in production, working with Shinedown and Hailstorm and Of Mice and Men and We Came as Romans, Highly Suspect. I mean, I've noticed a shout out to the Skillet plaque behind you as well.
Skillet, nothing more. Hailstorm.
Yep.
Like Theory of a Dead Man.
All of Octane's greatest bands. That's how I look at it. But working with bands that have such technical proficiency, that had to have maybe opened your idea to new ways, maybe added new tools to the toolbox for your own music, right?
Absolutely. When I started to kind of like figure out like, oh well, maybe I'm going to put this, I'm going to put this in, on tape and I'm going to start to do this. All those years of working with those bands, it definitely helped me to be able to put this stuff out and to make it sonically a little bit more, fresh, newer than just, recording straight to tape through an SSL. I work in the box. I have a studio in my house here and, I go straight into the computer. But I have a lot of knowledge from those years, and I approach things kind of the same way. And I try to get the drums to feel a certain way, or the guitars, or the bass, or the vocals, or this or that. So I didn't completely learn in the box to how to record and do music, because I learned in the studio first. But that definitely, working with those bands, helped me to be able to make this happen. I didn't know if it would work, but when I got done with the first song, which was a track called Spirits High, and I heard it back, after working on it for a while and then stepping away from it for maybe a month, and then turning it on and listening to it for the first time, it's like, okay, that sounds like the Exies. It sounds a little more modern, but it doesn't sound like, I don't have a trap beat going or anything like that. So I feel like I'm doing service to where it was that we left off. And this is kind of where we're picking up right now. And I have nothing against fucking trap beats, because I just did one on the new Dorothy single. But like, for my band, it didn't really seem appropriate.
Yeah, understandable. I mean, look, you got to separate the two in a way. But I wanted to ask, because I've interviewed like a lot of musicians who are also producers, and there's a lot of great musicians who dabble in that. Adam D from Killswitch Engage is a great freaking example. Butch Walker, I never got to interview him, but oh my god, what a fantastic musician and producer as well. And that's just a name I could top off my head. But like, working as a producer, you are still, I've always said a producer is, the fifth Beatle, sixth Beatle, if you're in Slipknot, the 10th Beatle, or something like that. But like, it's an instrument in itself, and it plays a very, very important role. Do you have a similar attachment to work you've done with the Exies, your own work, versus working as the producer in a way? Do you feel like a different attachment to it, or does your vision or artistic strategy change in a way? Or in the end, music is music, you feel kind of a mutual connection towards all of it?
Well, I think with the Exies, I'm always kind of looking, I'm looking for sonics from the past. And then I'm looking at content thematically for the future. Where am I? Who am I right now? How do I feel about things right now? Like, there was a sound that we had, and I want to honor that. That doesn't mean like, oh, I'm tied to that. It just is what feels natural, because when I was creating and writing with that band, that was my first real foray into the world, and putting my voice out there and putting my songs out there. And so I feel like that's a pretty genuine place for me to exist. When I'm working with Hailstorm or with Nothing More, with There's That, I'm always a little more forward thinking. And I'm also just like you said, the ninth or the sixth or the fifth or the fourth Beatle, fifth Beatle, or the fourth ZZ Top or fourth Rush guy.
Well, no, don't touch Rush. They're their own beast right there.
They're their own beast. But I'm always, because of the fact that I'm not in a hot seat on that, it allows me a little bit more expansive creativity and a little more liberty with ideas and this and that. Whereas when I'm doing the Exies, I still have an openness to it, but I'm very mindful of what has come before. And I think I was very cognizant of that early on. And I just was like, you know what? I want to be true to what got me here with this band. Like, just because I sat there and wrote like This Is the Time with Nothing More, that doesn't mean that I can do things from that song in the Exies, because it just won't work. It won't be believable. It won't sound right, because that's them, and I assimilated myself into their world, listened to their ideas, was able to contribute. We collectively, birthed that song, and as well as like 8 songs on that first record. And that's a different kind of zip up bag as to being your own artist. You got to know who you are. You got to know your voice. You got to know what's going to work. If you try to be somebody else, it never works. So that's what I learned.
When it comes to collaborating with other musicians, though, and creating something, this could go for production or for with the Exies. Does everybody have to be in the same frame of mind in a way? Like, do you and Freddie have to be in the same state of mind, or do you and Chris have to be in the same state of mind in the X's and writing together? Or when producing, do you have to be in the same state of mind as James Durbin or Lizzie Hale or any of the guys in any of the bands you're working with?
That's a really, really, really good question, Alex. I don't know. I don't think I've ever looked at it that way. I mean, you come in with an idea and you go, "What do you think about this?" you know, and somebody's like, "Yeah," or "No, that sucks," or "Well, I got an idea," which is basically telling you that your idea sucks. You know, like I don't know. You know, we just whenever I get into that mode of presenting an idea, you're just taking a risk, like telling somebody a secret or something personal about yourself. You don't know how they're going to react to it, and are they going to give it the respect that you want it to have? You know, they if they're a good friend, then they will. If they're not a close friend, they might be like, "That was stupid," or "No." You know, I don't know. You know, so I feel like when I'm with Lizzie, when I'm with Freddie, it's always the same thing. It's kind of like, "What do you think of this?" You know, is it any good? You know, and I think you find people in your life that are truthful. They'll follow an idea for a minute, and if it doesn't really come to fruition within an hour or 2 hours, like if there isn't any movement, then it really isn't supposed to be at that time. You know, and that's kind of where I've gone.
Well, because I've interviewed a lot of bands, and whenever I ask them, like, "Oh, how was the making of a record?" And a band answers, we all mutually came together. It was such a mutual respective process. I don't buy that for a minute. If you're in a band with if you're in a band with 4 people, on top of that having a lot of outside input from either the production side or the label side or whatever, and there's multiple people involved, there's going to be disagreement, there's going to be different backgrounds and inspirations and different ideas that are going to collide. There's no way. It's like being in a marriage that never argues. You know what I mean?
Yeah, exactly. And guess what? It's all bullshit. It's like there is a lot of turmoil and crap that goes on once an idea starts to get settled on. Everybody's got their point of view on how it needs to go, where it needs to end up. So any band that just says, "Oh, we just got on the same page," that's not real. So it's like, it's okay, because you know what, you gotta go through. Look, the fact that somebody says, "Yeah, it's a good idea," but is the first hurdle. Once you get through that, then everything is shapeable. You might end up coming back around to whoever brought in the idea's first chorus idea, or there's a lyrical idea that's in there. Some people just feel like they got to piss on something just to kind of get their vibe on it. But once they kind of hear it materialize, and if it's not as badass as the first thing that was presented, if they're truly for the team, they will relent. And if their idea is truly better, the team will relent to that better idea. So songwriting is a tough animal, and it just takes patience and time, and it takes no ego, and it takes an open heart. And that's a lot to ask from a band, because everybody has their personality, and that's what makes a song work. You know, so when you're a band like the Exies, for as long as we've been, you kind of learn each other's buttons. You know, you learn what everybody kind of likes. That doesn't mean that you're placating or anything like that. It just means you know how to kind of deal with it. You know, if Chris goes, "Well, I don't really like that part for the chorus," okay, you come up with something, and if it isn't better, I know that my part's going to win.
But then then there's also the lyrical aspect, because you, being as a producer and a musician, like you obviously have to think things on a very technical level, from structure to rhythm and all of these different musical terminologies. Then there's also lyrics, where you have to show vulnerability, and you have to show like a more artistic vision, where you kind of have to let your emotions take over a little bit. So have you always needed to hear the music to come up with the lyrics to know where everything's going to fit, or has a lyrical idea maybe ever helped dictate a composition for the Exies?
Alex, both. Sometimes I have a title that works, and it kind of steers me towards a vibe. Most of the time, I am of the Beatles kind of school of thought, where you have some chords, or you have maybe you have a beat or a progression or something like that, and you're just kind of playing. and you start to have a feeling, right? Because the feeling is what comes first. It's what shines through the biggest. But without the lyrical addition to that feeling, none of us can really, lack of a better word, feel it. So we need that two-part combination. And when I start, I always kind of go off of how does it feel right here in my heart. And when I'm kind of playing the chords and I'm kind of finding the melody, the words kind of shape themselves over time, or at least the melody kind of tells me like, man, it wants to be something about this, or maybe it's about loss, or maybe it's about heartbreak, or maybe it's about euphoria, or things like that. So you kind of get, as the more you write, you start to kind of get in touch with what your emotions are trying to tell you, because they're like a cat or a dog. They can't speak directly to you. So they just kind of go round, 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 the whole time until you understand what it is that you want to say. And then all of a sudden, those words start to form in that melody that you've been singing. And as you hone and craft and work on that, the minute you get the lyric right, the melody glides. Until then, it's just whistle, right? It's elevator music, or it's just a whistling melody. But when the lyric gets on there, then it glides and it becomes this thing. And that's the hardest part of writing, is to be patient and to wait for that to come, so that you have your message, you have your story, you have your, do you relate to this kind of a song? Can you feel this kind of a song? Am I alone here kind of a song? It all starts with, I think, a pondering, a wondering, I don't know what I want to say exactly, but this is kind of it. I got to equate it to painters that sit there and they do all these colors. And then somehow through all that, they shape this image that comes through it. And they take colors out and they put colors in. And all of a sudden you have a picture of a lake with a boat on it, or whatever it might be. And you're like, and you don't realize the process that it took for them to get there. And I think songs are a lot of the same way.
That's the beauty of all of it. Are we still good on time? I have a few more questions.
We're good. We're good.
Awesome. Because I actually wanted to ask, too, depending on what the material is about, if it's coming from a more personal place or a more external source of inspiration, do you feel like you channel a different energy, or maybe or that feeling that you mentioned kind of changes depending on the lyrical content?
I do. I think so. I think the more you look, there's two sides to this. You can visualize what a scenario may be like, but that is sometimes conducive more for co-writing for someone else. In order to feel and to have different levels of what you want to portray, you have to experience it. Somehow it has to come in and out of your life. That doesn't mean it needs to be verbatim, that it doesn't need to be exactly how it happened. There's an old saying, don't let the truth get in the way of a good story. Sometimes how you elaborate on an event that might be particularly true or is true, if you can accentuate on that a little bit, everything gets better in the retelling, right? I mean, that's how we are as a world. So as long as the truth is rooted in there, and there is that truth at the base, some liberties can be had, and it makes for a little bit more of a journey sometimes. When you're writing for someone else, like I do, sometimes it's good to imagine and to go like, okay, I'm Lizzie Hale right now, and this is how I'm feeling when I think about this. And and then when Lizzie shows up, I said, listen, I've got some ideas that I feel like this is me looking through your eyes as you're looking at the fans, and they're singing this thing back to you, and everybody's got their hand up, and we're trying to unite on something. And this thing, and whatever that might be, she'll be like, yeah, that's good, or no, I don't feel that at all. But I do have a feeling that's kind of similar, and this is what I want to say. And that is exactly what happened on the song called The Steeple. She came in, she goes, I want this song about us all coming back together and about this unity and da-da-da-da. And so the next morning, I got up, had coffee, she came over and I said, I think I have this idea called the Steeple. And it's all about this union of rock and roll, or like this church of rock and roll. And like it's this congregation. And she's like, cool, let me hear it. And I kind of played a little bit of the chorus, and I didn't have all the words, and I kind of had some of the chords. And she's like, that's it. That describes what I'm feeling inside. Let's get going. And so we worked on it for 2 days and wrote it, and it became a #1 single. And that's kind of how it starts. It was just me taking liberty with something that she didn't like, but it led to the thing that she wanted to say.
It's always amazing on how songs start off, though. Like, to this day, one of my favorite stories in rock and roll, even though I could go the rest of my life without hearing that song, but Sweet Child of Mine, that opening classic guitar solo riff was a joke. Axl was just literally playing it as just a funny joke in a way. Like stories like that, it's just always great to hear on how they just started.
Because you know what? They need to start simple and a little archaic.
Yeah.
And they need to start a little bit dumb, because we as a society, like, when you have something that's a little bit dumb, it's real. Somehow there's a truth in, like they always say, when somebody makes a joke, you're da-da-da-da-da-da. Well, truth is in the jokes, right? Mm-hmm. So there's always a little bit of truth in the things that are dumb. And that's the things that we kind of all, as guilty pleasures, we kind of like them, but sometimes we won't admit it to everybody else. And that's when things like Sweet Child of Mine, or You Shook Me All Night Long,
Yeah.
There's truth in that.
Or Satisfaction thing. Coming from a hangover.
Satisfaction, or We're Not Gonna Take It.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? It's like as dumb as it gets, but it's great.
Just because it's a cliche doesn't mean it isn't true. One of my favorite quotes for one of my favorite books. So
there you go. Who said that?
It's a quote from a book called Veronica Decides to Die, and there's a great film based off of it too. It's very dark and depressing, which is why I like it. But in case you couldn't tell by the background,
it's all good.
But
we're with the Exies. We're existentialists. We're like, it's pretty bleak.
I wanted to talk about that. I kind of wanted to end it because we got to go deep into like the songwriting process and your artistic process, a little bit of the comeback of the Exies. I wanted to talk about sort of like the Exies back in the day, because I've definitely come across your music again as like a young teenager, but I wasn't aware of music in a sense of like what's popular on radio, different subgenres, the trends or whatever. I listen to the Exies music now from being a journalist and analyzing everything and all that. You guys are an interesting band in the sense where like I felt like you were able to sort of fit in with multiple, like I feel like people who were into like the 90s alternative rock were able to appreciate you guys. People who were into grunge could appreciate you guys. People who were into emo, I think we're able to appreciate you guys. People who are into like Nickelback or Three Doors Down, or any of the stuff that was big on Z100 in the early 2000s, the Hoobastanks and all that. Yeah. It seems like you were kind of able to appeal to multiple audiences. Am I wrong? There wasn't really like a fit style of rock you were catered to.
No, I mean, look, if you wanted to label us, I guess we were a post-grunge or a late grunge kind of band. Here's the thing about us. When so much time has passed, so it all has a little bit more of a clear focus on it now, and that is we were a little bit too maybe clever or deep into certain things that weren't as dumb as what we were just talking about. Like I couldn't quite figure out a way to go, we're not gonna take it. Mm-hmm. Even though that's 80s, I couldn't even do like, which I love Linkin Park, but some of those choruses, and I think they're genius, I could never with my voice say those things, but I said things that were similar, and I always had to try to be true to what I felt. And I think in the long run, we were amongst all those bands. We didn't have the breakout massive hit like that because we were just maybe a little too clever, a little too insecure, a little too...
I think you were a band that like... I think in a way, I mean it as a compliment. I could see some people seeing it as a disadvantage, but I think maybe you were like too mainstream for the people who love the obscure shit, and you were
Yeah.
too like artistic for people who only gravitate towards the mainstream stuff.
Perfectly put. And like we fell through the cracks, and but yet somehow, some freaking how, time has changed that to a degree where we just played a show for 300 people at the Viper Room, and people flew from all over the country. This is not LA. They came in from Missouri, from Kentucky, from Florida, from England, from Texas, from freaking Minnesota, Wyoming, Kansas, Nebraska. Like that was pretty eye-opening as to like, okay, we never fully fit in, but now somehow we do. And because so much time has passed, we are a grungy kind of band that, is now just nostalgia. And nostalgia is this thing that makes you feel great.
I love it. I love it.
And the new material sounds like the old material, so it's like...
Yeah, listen, now that we got like a lot of the new metal nostalgia, the emo nostalgia with the When We Were Young festival and all that, you now got Creed coming back. I want to see a lot of these grunge bands that are very underrated, that like may have broken up in the early 2000s, that may have put out like one album. They never got local band status. I'm talking a band, maybe you've never heard of them, called Modern Day Zero, or a band like One Less Reason, you guys, and like just do like a full on the post grunge takes back it all. Like, I don't know.
Earshot, Trust Company.
Yup.
Like we're all there, and I still talk to those guys.
Decipher Down.
Yeah, Decipher Down. And I'm fucking talking to Chris Clont all the time. Like he and I are talking all the time. He's actually co-wrote 2 songs with me on the new Dorothy album. And it's like, it's just those, it's time to do that kind of a tour or something of that. Hinder,
Hurt.
Hurt. It would be a gas, man. It really would. It'd be fun. It's nostalgia. It doesn't need to be frowned upon. It might have been in the time. Some of it was supported. It just needs to be what it was, and time kind of fixes all that shit.
Remember Switchfoot?
It just does. It fixes all that shit.
Yeah. Remember Switchfoot?
Sure, of course.
Yeah.
We
Dude,
could live for so much more.
we were meant to live for so much more. Oh my God.
But we lost ourselves.
I couldn't go. That was played on the radio when my mom was picking me up from school. That was played in supermarkets. That was played in sporting events. That was played everywhere.
Yeah, dude. I mean, that's the thing. And like Ugly, I got added on a Spotify playlist 2 days ago called Throwback Thursdays, and it's like all the bands that we're mentioning, and I'm like, hallelujah.
Yeah.
So what? It's awesome.
Yeah.
Okay, we're gonna play the Machine Shop now. We just announced our second show, and with a little bit of luck, we'll sell it out. We did over a third of the tickets the first day. So there's a want for it. There's a need for it. And we just, we just want to play and have the connection and have fun.
Yeah.
Because it isn't about the same thing anymore. This is just, let's just go have fun, man.
That's all we can do with these
Leave
stuff.
something from when you were like 8, 10 years old. You know
Right.
what I mean?
Oh man, I'm gonna be like that kid, like when everybody's talking about, oh, I remember seeing them play this song for like 6 people. I was like, I remember hearing this song when my mom picked me up from 2nd grade. Like,
Yeah.
But before we go, I want to thank you so much for your time and for such an excellent conversation. I can't wait. It's just I love having these conversations about the bands we talked about when I just interviewed Flesh God Apocalypse earlier this morning. Wow. So like, I love the contrast of interviews I had today. Is there just anything else with the Exies we could be expecting in the near future with this new music? Is there anything that we could be expecting in terms of more new music in the future or upcoming shows? Plug it all on here.
When is this thing airing?
I don't know, about a week or so.
In about a week. So we've got Machine Shop. I think we're going to announce it. Yeah, we're going to announce it next week. So for the first time ever, we're going to have vinyl, which I think is very exciting, for this band that never got that. So it will start and be a part of the Machine Shop show. We're working on some more, shows in the future. We have to take it a show at a time. You know how it is, like 16 years of not doing this, and then we played a show, it really went well, it was great. Now we're going to do the Machine Shop, which is our home away from home. Let's hope this goes well. And 2025, there's some great conversations happening to try to do more of this. I just want to go and play a multitude of cities and just talk about what you and I have been talking about. Like, I would love to sit there and I would love to go and watch a Fuel and a Switchfoot and and just be a part of that for an evening. Why not?
Vertical Horizon.
And yeah, Vertical Horizon and just do it. So that being said, we're working on it, and you will know about it when it transpires.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much, everybody. We are here with Scott Stevens of The Exies. Be sure to check out the brand new Music Closure EP. This is Alex from Heavy New York, and we will see you next time.
Thank you, brother.